Welcome to Reading the Bible with Pastor. Today we're on Esther chapter 5. Previously, we read about the edict put out by King Ahasuerus by the hand of Haman to kill all the Jews in the 12th month of the year. Mordecai, devastated by this, goes to Esther to seek help, to plead to the king to return back this edict. Esther calls for a fast of 3 days. And all of this is happening, as we were mentioning, during the time of Passover, the first month of the year, Nisan. If things work out in the terms of the timing, this was the 13th day of the month whenever the edict was sent out, and Passover happens on the 14th day. Esther calls for 3 days of fasting. There's a potential chance that her going before the king happens on the Feast of First Fruits, and it may even be during the time of Easter, or the same day that Easter would have happened. Either way, what we can see here is that God is working the redemption of his people to remove them from death and make them so that they have life. So let's pick up here with verse 1. On the third day, that is the third day of the fast, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, in front of the king's quarters, while the king was sitting on his royal throne inside the throne room out opposite the entrance to the palace. So this is kind of giving you that moment. She's standing before all of these entrances, and before the king, she's got to come to him. And remember, if she comes uninvited, it's a death sentence, unless the king holds out his golden scepter, showing that he approves of her presence here. And when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won favor in his sight. And he held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. And the king said to her, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given you, even to the half of my kingdom." So, what we had read previously was Esther hadn't seen the king in 30 days. So, for her to go before him unannounced would have been very terrifying. But he finds favor in Esther, that is King Ahasuerus, and asks her, what do you want? And showing how much favor he has for her and how pleased he is with her, he says, "Up to half my kingdom." Now, he says that's probably hyperbolic. He probably doesn't mean that, but it goes to show how much he is willing to go for her. Verse 4, "And Esther said, 'If it please the king, let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared for the king.' Then the king said, 'Bring Haman quickly, so that we may do as Esther has asked.' So the king and Haman came to the feast that Esther had prepared. And as they were drinking wine after the feast, the king said to Esther, 'What is your wish? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even to the half of my kingdom it shall be fulfilled.' Then Esther answered, 'My wish and my request is, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my wish, and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come to the feast that I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king has said.'" Now, King Ahasuerus enjoys feasting, as we have read throughout the book here. He had 180 days of party, if you will. So having a couple extra is wonderful for him. And so he is excited to be a part of this. Verse 9, "And Haman went out that day joyful and glad of heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he neither arose nor trembled before him, he was filled with wrath against Mordecai." Remember, Haman is basically second in command in the kingdom. And when he sees that Mordecai is still not giving him homage or paying him any respect, he gets angered again, because that's the reason that he's going to kill all the Jews. Verse 10, "Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home, and he sent and brought his friends and his wife Zeresh. And Haman recounted to them the splendor of his riches, the number of his sons, all the promotions with which the king had honored him, and how he had advanced him above the officials and the servants of the king. Then Haman said, 'Even Queen Esther let no one but me come with the king to the feast she prepared. And tomorrow also I am invited by her with the king. Yet all this is worth nothing to me, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate.' Basically, he has all of this, but it all is for nothing if he does not get to kill Mordecai. Then his wife, Zeresh, and all his friends said to him, "Let a gallows 50 cubits high be made," that's 75 feet high, and that's probably a wooden spike. "And in the morning, tell the king to have Mordecai hanged upon it. Then go joyfully with the king to the feast." This idea pleased Haman, and he had the gallows made. We're getting to a turning point here where Mordecai is in very much danger with Haman wanting to kill him. We'll see what Esther has planned in her second feast here in chapter 6.